Welcome to the Syneos Health Podcast, Early Signals, where we explore the ideas, innovations, and emerging trends shaping the future of oncology. I'm Dr. Wael Harb, Head of R&D and Scientific Strategy in Oncology at Syneos Health. Recorded live from ASCO 2026, these conversations bring together perspective from leaders across biopharma, academia, and technology on the signals they're watching most closely, from AI-enabled drug development and real-world evidence to precision medicine. These conversations offer a snapshot of where oncology innovation is headed next. Let's tune into one of our conversations now. My guest today sits at one of the most consequential intersections in oncology drug development, the place where data stops being a byproduct of care and start becoming evidence that moves regulators, payers, and ultimately patients. Justin Spencer is the Chief Executive Officer of Azimuth Research Group, and his path here is anything but conventional. Before Azimuth, Justin co-founded Analinx, where he spent years building health data and strategy solution, and he's held leadership roles spanning health systems and management consulting. That combination, operator, data architect, and strategist, is exactly what real-world evidence demands right now. We are at the moment where the FDA has stood up an oncology real-world evidence program, where synthetic control arms are reshaping trial design, and where the gap between patient in our pivotal trials and the patient in the clinic has never been more scrutinized. Justin and his team at Azimuth are building the methods, the data infrastructure, the medical affairs muscle to close that gap. Today, we're going to get into what high-quality real-world evidence actually looks like, where the field is over-promising, and how real-world evidence is going to reshape the next decade of oncology development. Justin, welcome to Early Signals.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harb. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the generous introduction. And building on what you said, I think it's absolutely critical that we begin closing the gaps that exist between the bench and the bedside in research.
Justin, you co-founded Analinx in the health data world and now leading Azimuth Research Group. What's the through line in that journey? And what gap in the market did you build Azimuth to fill?
Years ago, when I co-founded Analinx, the journey began in all places in cybersecurity. I was working for, or a partner of, a government relations firm that was founded by a former U.S. senator. And one of our clients had a cybersecurity platform, and I had previous experience in healthcare data, having consulted with healthcare systems, and I actually did have some very large healthcare systems in my portfolio as a consultant at the time. And when we looked at, okay, cybersecurity, locking down healthcare data, what does that enable? And it became crystal clear that obviously one of the key pillars of our healthcare system, of our healthcare infrastructure that could be enabled by a more secure framework for healthcare data would be research. If you can lock down the data but also have it available for industry to conduct research and accelerate the path from the bench to the bedside, if you will, that would be incredibly valuable. Obviously, as a capitalist, you look at the billions of dollars that are spent on drug development. That's where I saw the opportunity and was very fortunate to be introduced to a co-founder of Analinx, Dr. Aaron Kamau, who had an extensive background, has an extensive background in medical informatics and public health, also a physician. He had founded a company called Analinx, and as we looked at building our business, we were introduced to his business, and we thought, that's exactly the right model. And so we ended up acquiring or merging, if you will, with his business, Analinx. And then Aaron and I spent many hours on the road building the business and really enjoyed it. He has his own company now called Navidence and is doing extremely well. He and I are good friends. In my view, he's one of the most brilliant medical informatics scientists out there, really understands data better than just about anybody. We sold that company, and fast forward to the founding of Azimuth. I had an opportunity to come back into the research field, but the challenges I saw in Analinx still existed many years later. The challenge being, how do you get research and data serving the healthcare community and the research community in the right context? That led me to architecting a new business model with my co-founders where we're actually bringing the research to the health system. That's our business model. We work with closed health systems that have access to not only patients, but research infrastructure that are looking to better enable their own capabilities in research and do it in a more patient-centric way. What we've learned is that the earlier you are able to inform the research community on what they're working on, their protocol, their research question, the better.
So you mentioned that you're bringing research to healthcare system. Can you explain how is your model different and why this will be able to effectively shorten the path for drug development?
How is it different? It's more analog, I would say. Where the world is moving into AI and platforms, when I got into the healthcare space, it was around the Affordable Care Act being passed, was doing a lot of work with the Catholic healthcare systems in the United States and the Catholic Health Association, and so had all the behind-the-scenes drama that was unfolding as that bill was being passed. And that really shifted the focus of the healthcare systems to be more data-centric and more protective of patient-level data. You saw the boom with Epic, Cerner, these large EHR companies benefited from the passage of that bill, and we're just now seeing what that's enabling. From a technology perspective, things are moving very quickly. The challenge, though, is still more structural when you're talking about healthcare systems and patient-level data. And so when I say we have a more analog approach, we actually look to support the healthcare systems behind their own firewall. We have data scientists that obviously carry the right approvals and whatnot, the right security framework to get hands-on with the patient-level data. And we're able to answer research questions leveraging that data, but also we're able to enable those healthcare systems to recruit patients, for example, in oncology, do some of these innovative things we tried to do before the data was catching up to the practice competency of actually shortening the time of startup, shortening patient recruitment pathways, enabling sites to be more intelligent, which there are a lot of amazing platforms out there doing that right now. But what's working for Azimuth is the approach of getting hands-on with the data, working closely with the physicians, working closely with the health system, aligning incentives so that the patients are at the center and that the health systems are benefiting, the physicians are benefiting, and the research community is benefiting all in parallel. When I say analog, obviously there's the data component to this. They had a platform component. We're obviously developing tools and assets that we intend to deploy in the future to assist our work. But what we're doing right now works very well. And our sites are recruiting in the United States. They're blowing past expectations. It's working, and it's more of a land and expand for us.
You mentioned patient data and real-world evidence. As a CEO of Azimuth Research built around real-world evidence, can you explain why this is important and what does it mean to the average person?
The reason why it's important that we have close ties to the healthcare delivery system is because everything has to be put into the right context. What we've seen with AI, for example, and the adoption curve of large language models and enterprise deals that are happening in the AI space right now, it's very exciting. The user experience curve is accelerating, so people are actually getting smarter with how to leverage these tools that AI is providing. I think companies are starting to get smarter around it. But what you learn really quickly early in the AI days is that context matters. How you engage with your large language model matters. If you ask the wrong question or a question out of context, you'll get the wrong answer. It sounds like a simple aspect, but when you're talking about data, and when you're talking about data that comes from a patient, a sovereign individual, if you will, that has their own unique profile that is then expressed in the form of data, and that data sits in a healthcare system that is actually pulling that data from where it resides at the patient level into an EHR system, which then goes into a claim system and then goes into the machine, the data machine. You have to really understand how the data is created, why it's created, why does it look the way it does, why was it designed that way. You have to have the right context of a living, breathing healthcare system that's producing data. And there's a firewall between research and healthcare. It's there for patient safety, it's there for patient privacy, And it's there to make sure that the healthcare system isn't taken advantage of. That creates problems when you're developing protocols to treat patients. You can look at retrospective data, you can have your KOL panels, all of that. And if your panel is made up of academics and physicians that spend a lot of their time consulting versus in practice, that can create a divergence from what the current standard of care is. And we see that all the time. We talk to our physicians about every protocol that comes across our inbox, and we consult with them. We seek to understand the standard of care, the therapies that are currently being used, the challenges the patients are having. So we actually understand what's happening at the healthcare level, at the care delivery level. And that means the answers we're able to provide to the research community are going to be more accurate. They're going to have the right context. And if the research questions that are being asked are not matching with what is actually happening in the healthcare system, we can inform on that. It sounds like a very simple position, just put everything in the right context. But as complicated as healthcare is in the United States and also globally, it's very difficult to keep things in the right context. If you look at why enrollment in certain clinical trials is struggling, in particular in the United States, I think it's that disconnect between research and healthcare. We need a closer integration, we need to be more patient-centered, and we need to have closer relationships with our care providers. It's institutionally and structurally very difficult for pharma to have that. You need an honest broker in the middle, and you need someone who are an entity that is going to serve the needs of the healthcare system and also the research community. The other aspect to this also is that healthcare systems are designed for healthcare. They're not designed for research. Research institutions are better suited to care for patients and conduct research. But most of our healthcare delivery system is community healthcare systems, healthcare clinics and centers and hospitals. And their job is to take care of patients. Their budget is to take care of patients. As a consultant for the healthcare industry, I learned really quickly that research is not a priority. It does not make money for the healthcare system. They do it, they see the value in it, but it doesn't necessarily drive the bottom line on their razor-thin margins. And so it's a challenge. And I think the bridge that we're building here between pharma and healthcare is an important bridge. And it's not that we're not going to use technology and platforms to assist the work. It's just that right now, we can do it without a platform or AI models, let's say, that we sell into the industry. We're leveraging, of course, tools and AI models to do our work, but we're not a technology company that's selling a particular widget.
So, Justin, you shared with us the importance of access to data. Can you describe to us what type of data you have access to? What is the quality of the data? Because it all comes down to how can this data be used in the right context, as you mentioned.
We have a complete look at what's happening within the health system. And we prefer to work with closed healthcare systems. And when I say closed healthcare systems, I mean systems that provide the full spectrum of care and also provide the payer level, let's call it the payer services. We know who those are in the United States. There's a select few of them. And then globally, obviously, there are more single payer systems out there. But our data right now that we're working on, in particular in the U.S., basically it's a snapshot of the United States population. Demographically, it looks basically like approximately a 10 million patient snapshot of what's happening in the United States. So that's number one. And what does that mean in terms of the data? The data is EHR data, which is critically important for understanding what's happening in near real time. But that doesn't give you the full picture. You need pharmacy data. You need imaging data. You need any sort of data that's collected, whether it's a tissue sample or a serum sample or whatever. You need that data to get a complete picture of what's happening with the patient. And that's what we have. And so from a development support aspect, it's incredibly important, early stage development. But then also for clinical trials that are in phase 1 through 4, it's incredibly important as well. And as much as we'd like to think this is a no-brainer, I think Azimuth is a unique entity out there that's actually doing it.
What's, in your view, need to happen in our healthcare system when it comes to data and research and bringing in novel treatment to patients, cancer patient and beyond? We're here at ASCO and we have a lot of great innovations, but we still have issues in the expensive drug development, the time that takes to develop drug, and even after the drug get approved, we have continued to have difficulty with access and dissemination of this life-saving treatment. I would love to hear your view about what you would like to see the future. You've been a serial entrepreneur and you have encountered different aspects of the healthcare system. Where do you think we should be going?
This is actually a very important question. I think that globally, the access to the best care, they should be humanity's number one priority. I'm just speaking for me. This is Justin. This isn't Azimuth. But where would I like to see it go? I would like to see the diffusion of these innovative medicines adopted globally. I would like to see the cost of these medicines come down tremendously. I would like to see the global community rally around sharing data and insights and innovation. I think empowering humanity with the latest and greatest as far as healthcare to expand lifespan will get the most out of our time here on this planet if we can do that. And I think patients need to be at the center. I think patients deserve sovereignty. They deserve to own their own data, the right to understand what's happening with their healthcare journey, and also the sovereignty to make choices that are in their best interest, not the system's best interest, or not the best interest of the payer or the provider. It needs to be in the interest of the patient. So what does that mean? What that means is, in a company like Azimuth, that's what we're trying to do. And our little role, or a small part in trying to move that needle, is demonstrating that if we have a more patient-centered integration between research and the healthcare system, we can actually move that needle. How does that lower cost? Well, it increases speed. I love what the FDA is trying to do. I think getting technology integrated to reduce time is incredibly important. Enabling healthcare systems and rewarding healthcare systems for participating in research should be on the agenda as well, so that everyone's incentives are aligned. I mean, that's probably the most difficult thing to do in any industry, is align all the incentives. Let's not have winners and losers. Let's make sure everyone's winning. And I think it's possible. I think the environment is ripe for it. I think the innovations are accelerating so quickly just here at ASCO. And looking at what's happening in CAR T therapies, the M&A activity that's happening in the business and the industry is exciting. We need players like Azimuth out there that can shorten that time, improve recruitment, get the right data insights, get the right data, bring the right data to the table in the right context. Obviously, I'm an optimist, but a decade from now, I would love to see cancer and other immunological diseases addressed in a way that it's treatable, it's curable, and it doesn't cost you millions of dollars as a patient to have access to it.
That's a great vision. What would you like to leave the audience as a final thought?
We're all patients. So when we're in a business and trying to hit revenue targets and do our daily work, sometimes it's easy to forget that these are human beings, that they're sovereign individuals, that they have families, that they are someone's grandmother, child, whatever, and that the work we're doing is really critical to sustaining their livelihood, their lives. Again, a very optimistic statement, but just being here at ASCO and seeing the amazing technology that's being developed and how it's impacting lives. I just was introduced to an individual who has really created a new industry in immunology and engineering. And I had to pause after our conversation and say, do you realize that I know of at least 2 patients whose lives you've saved with your work? And now that does not sound significant, 2 patients. It's only 2 patients. That's huge. If you can just save one, that's huge. And so I'm really grateful to be here with you. I know you have tremendous experience in clinical research and oncology, and very grateful for the contributions you've made to the industry and for the lives you've saved. It's been really nice to be here. Thank you.
Justin, thank you so much. This is exactly the conversation that this show exists for. Thank you for sharing your experiences, your vision, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. You too.
That's all for today's episode of the Syneos Health Podcast, Early Signals. I'm your host, Dr. Wael Harb. If you have other topics you would like to hear on this podcast, please send us a message at podcast@syneoshealth.com. For access to more future-focused, actionable life science insights, please visit the Insights Hub at syneoshealth.com.